Tonight, COVID-19 hits close to home for a Teton County family. We'll hear from a father whose daughter is in the fight of her life. Plus, hot, dry conditions prompt Cascade County leaders to impose fire restrictions. And Montana firefighters lend a hand to help battle flames in California.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Thanks for making MTN part of your night. I'm Tim McGonigal. COVID-19 is showing up in Montana correctional facilities. The Cascade County Jail has confirmed its first case. The sheriff says the individual came down with symptoms a few days ago. The medical staff isolated him and his test came back positive yesterday. The City County Health Department, along with Alluvian, are working with the jail medical staff to get other inmates and staff tested. The sheriff says the pod the individual came from has been locked down for quarantine, but they will not say which pod he came from. Meanwhile, dozens of inmates in the Yellowstone County Detention Center have tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. In a news release, Yellowstone County Sheriff Mike Linder said that an inmate tested positive earlier this week. As a result, the rest of the inmates in that unit, approximately 70 males, were also tested, and about 30 of them are positive. It's not clear how many may have tested positive from a previous exposure. Linder says the inmates are not symptomatic at this time and are being isolated from the rest of the population. In addition, 4 female inmates who tested positive or displayed symptoms are being held in isolation. And here's a look at Montana's updated COVID numbers tonight. The third COVID-related death in Missoula County has pushed the state's death toll to 90. Montana added more than 140 new cases today. There are currently just over 1,300 active cases, and more than 4,800 people have fully recovered from the virus. As of this afternoon, there were 97 active COVID-19 hospitalizations in the state of Montana. Behind each of those cases, a patient and people who love them. MTN's Tom Wiley shares the story of one such family from Fairfield.
The Yeager family's nightmare started over the weekend when their 14-year-old daughter, Kiana, began showing symptoms.
Kiana was, had a high fever and, just overall lethargic. And Candy and I made the decision to run her into Great Falls there to the clinic. We found out Sunday morning that she'd had the COVID, that she just kept going south on us.
Since then, it's been a blur for the past 6 days. Kiana was flown from Great Falls to Salt Lake City, where she's in the ICU with an enlarged liver, spleen, and gallbladder, low blood pressure, failing kidneys, fluid in her lungs, and heart problems.
It's just been one thing after the next with this deal. We get one thing taken care of, and something else is a problem.
Kiana is a healthy teenager with no underlying conditions, so her case is rare and concerning.
The way it was explained to me is that she's kind of had a reaction to the COVID. Most of us go through, some of us don't even know we got the COVID. Some of us have the squirts and sniffles. Kiana kind of won the lottery on it and got kind of a bad deal.
Kiana is fighting for her life, but there's no one better equipped to fight.
She's a competitor. She's tough, but tender.
Support is poured in from all corners of Montana. Kiana has organized food drives in her community, and a family friend recently set up a Facebook group called Kiana's Biggest Drive. While she fights COVID-19, they invite others to stock the shelves of Montana food banks in her name.
We're sure thankful for all the support from our community and beyond, and we're all fighters here, and I think Kiana's going to whip this deal and be back and flower in her community.
Kiana's condition is improving, but there's no telling what long-term effects lie in her future. Her battle is far from over, but it helps to have an entire state in her corner.
Optimism is built in, and they're going to get her out of there, and she's going to come home.
Tom Wiley, MTN News.
More positive news. Late this afternoon, we learned that Kiana has been cleared to leave the ICU. And if you'd like to learn how to contribute to Kiana's Biggest Drive, you can find that link on KRTV.com. Montana and 44 other states will be expected to pay a quarter of the state's National Guard response to the pandemic. Since March, the Montana National Guard has been activated for a federal mission to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. That mission has been fully funded by FEMA under Title 32, but beginning Friday, the federal government wants a 25% copay. Earlier this week, Governor Bullock called the decision unprecedented.
All the time that they're on federal missions, that's paid 100% by the federal government. They've said that states will end up paying 25% of the cost of the National Guard and the federal government will be picking up 75. Unprecedented when it comes to being on Title 32 orders.
The original order from President Trump excluded Texas and Florida from having to pay the 25%. Arizona, California, and Connecticut were added to that list a couple weeks ago. Bullock said the state will use CARES Act dollars to pick up the remaining 25%. Both Great Falls and Helena Public Schools will welcome students back in the next 2 weeks. MTN's Matt Holzaffel has more on the specific challenges that one group is gearing up for.
As we inch closer to the start of the school year in Great Falls, district officials anticipate they'll encounter challenges like never before. Though there's one group that will face additional challenges, including some that they've been dealing with since before the pandemic.
For our special education students, these students all have some sort of disability which impacts them in their educational realm, which qualifies them for this. We haven't seen them for 6 months, so for teachers they may have lost more skill than they typically would, may have more medical challenges, as we know for some of our students with mental health needs.
The district's student services administrators have been working to address all of the challenges of returning to school, plus the additional ones that come with special education programs.
We've really had to look at our staffing numbers, look at the needs of the students in these specific classrooms, because they're specially designed for high needs students.
One thing that's being done, diversifying the programs that the para-educators will be teaching.
We have ordered more curriculums. We have had a lot more conversations about, students needing additional support, students, needing more small group. They may need more time one-on-one.
At the end of the day, the best that they can hope for is some normalcy.
Our goal is to try to keep it as normal as possible, and so with our plans that we're trying to be proactive with, we're trying to provide something that's consistent for them, that's predictable, that they can walk into the school amidst all the change and still have that feeling of, I've been here before, this is what I've done.
Back in November, I spoke with Dale Lambert, the Student Services Director for the Great Falls Public Schools District. Now, Dale has since retired from that position. Congratulations, Dale. But his message remains the same. There's a lack of paraprofessionals in the Great Falls Public Schools District. There's over 970 students in these special ed programs, but only 160 teachers, staff, nurses, people that make these programs run. In fact, there's still currently 15 openings the district is looking to fill. In Great Falls, Matt Holzaffel, MTN News.
Cascade County Commissioners approved Stage 1 fire restrictions at a special meeting this morning after consulting with the County Fire Council. No fireworks are allowed to be set off in the county until further notice from the commission. Burning campfires outside of campsites is also not allowed. Open burning was prohibited before the fire restrictions took place. The commission approved the restrictions after fire on Bootlegger Trail burned 100 acres last Sunday. Officials told MTN News the fire was started by tannerite, an explosive fire target. Commissioners urged Cascade County residents to practice fire safety during peak fire season.
I'm not real big on these restrictions, but I think we have to listen to our volunteer fire chiefs. They're the ones who have to deal first and foremost with these.
The restrictions come as many rural fire departments in Montana are strapped for cash because of the pandemic, and for the full story, you can visit us online. Well, 9 Montana firefighters have already been deployed to help fight fires in California. According to the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, close to 20 Montana firefighters have been deployed to other states, with more Montana engine strike teams ready to deploy to California. In wildfire season, the DNRC strategically places resources across the state to provide quick response to any wildfire with a pandemic looming over those resources. DNRC is working with health departments to ensure the safety of Montana firefighters across the state and out of state by providing health screenings and safety equipment.
Our actual mobilization processes and allocation processes have not changed, but we did know that we would have to deal with COVID-19, so we have guidelines to keep our firefighters healthy, whether it's a firefighter in Oregon or a firefighter in Montana, and that way we can, still mobilize nationally when we need to.
Meanwhile, some Montana National Guard soldiers are wrapping up a week of training to get them prepared if they're needed for wildfire duty. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has a look at what they practiced.
37 Montana National Guard members are training this week at Fort Harrison, making sure they'll be ready if the Guard is called on to assist during wildfire season. The week-long training began with a pack test, where they had to carry a 45-pound pack 3 miles in 45 minutes. After 3 days of classroom instruction, they moved on to practical training Friday. A contractor helped them practice building control lines, using torches to set backfires, and setting up fire shelters in case of an emergency.
It's really great to see how effective it is, because before this I didn't fully know what firefighters were doing out there. I knew they're out there doing some stuff, but now I have a better insight of what they're doing and a much better understanding.
Specialist Shelby Kother is one of 28 soldiers getting their red card for the first time.
Part of me has thought about doing volunteer firefighter, and then when my unit offered me the chance to come learn the class and everything, I jumped right on it.
The Guard says these members would most likely be brought in on a major fire to help mop up, allowing other fire crews to focus on direct action. Kother says she's glad to go through the training to be ready to provide that help.
I hope it allows me to be able to go help fellow firefighters and assist and all that, so no more damage really can happen if there's more hands out there.
At Fort Harrison, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Firefighters will be ready to be called into action with our hot, dry conditions that are expected to continue over the weekend. Elizabeth Copeland joins us with our first forecast.
Good afternoon to you. A little different out there today than it was this time yesterday. We were dealing with some severe storms that have now moved out as of last night, really leaving us with dry conditions and some blue sky out there over Opportunity Bank ICAM in the capital city. Just a few clouds around, none of those producing rain. And we're going to see some really dry air continue to fill in over our area this weekend. So we'll see a lot of the blue skies. We're also going to see a shift in wind, bringing in some wildfire smoke from the west. So some pretty heavy wildfire smoke filling in the skies, especially across parts of the High Line like Cut Bank and Havre this evening. Even seeing some of that trickle down into Great Falls and Helena as well. So just because the wildfire smoke map has the heavy wildfire smoke across the High Line doesn't mean we won't be seeing it on the horizon, especially in Great Falls and the northeast corner even. So our air quality has taken a dive as well because of that smoke from other states. We're at moderate for parts of the High Line where that heavy wildfire smoke is, but we continue tracking those blue skies coming up here shortly.
Thanks, Elizabeth. When we come back, there's a lot of money being spent in the race for the governor's mansion. Where it's all coming from, we'll go inside the numbers.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Welcome back. Republican Greg Gianforte continues to have a huge fundraising lead over Democrat Mike Cooney in Montana's race for governor. But as MTN's Mike Dennison reports, when you take out Gianforte's own substantial personal contribution, it's not quite as lopsided. Tonight he has a closer look at where the money is coming from in the race for governor.
Through last weekend, Greg Gianforte had raised $2.8 million from donors for his gubernatorial campaign. And Democrat Mike Cooney, he's taken in about $1.8 million. Both men are getting plenty of money from fellow Montanans. For Gianforte, it's almost 80% of his donations, $2.2 million. And for Cooney, it's around 72%, or $1.3 million. The race also is getting attention from donors across the country, for it's one of the only competitive gubernatorial races in the nation. Cooney has donors from all 50 states, and Gianforte has donors from every state except Hawaii. While Gianforte has been the fundraising leader for most of this race, Cooney actually raised more from donors than did Gianforte in the past 2 months. Cooney raised $726,000 since mid-July, while Gianforte took in about $582,000 from donors during the period. But the biggest difference in this fundraising contest, of course, is Gianforte's personal contributions. In addition to the $2.8 million he's raised from donors, Gianforte has loaned or contributed almost $2.6 million of his own money to his campaign. That pushes his overall total to $5.4 million, or 3 times what Cooney has raised. And Gianforte's campaign has already spent $5 million, including $1.5 million on media buys in the past 2 months. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
And Libertarian Lyman Bishop of Kalispell also in the race. He's raised $17,500 for his campaign, including about $10,000 from his own pocket.
Besides a little wildfire smoke on the horizon, we're looking at a very dry and sunny weekend. We track a weak cold front moving through coming up after the break.
Storm Tracker weather starts now with Chief Meteorologist Elizabeth Copeland.
Welcome back on this Friday evening. Not really in our area, but further to the south and east, really in the Gulf of Mexico. We are watching a couple of storms develop. One of them is Tropical Storm Laura, which is now hanging out just to the east of San Juan. It's tracked to go just south of Florida and into the Gulf by Tuesday. We're also tracking a tropical depression, not quite a storm yet, called Tropical Depression 14, which will eventually be forecasted to turn into a tropical storm and then into a hurricane, just like Tropical Storm Laura is. So both of those forecasted to become hurricanes at the same place during the same time. Hurricane Category 1 hurricanes possible for both of these, at least forecasted to do so over the next few days, early in the next week. If that does occur and they're both hurricanes at the same time in the Gulf of Mexico, it will be the first time in history that two hurricanes have occupied the Gulf at the same time. So a lot of history being made in 2020. This is also one of those to add to the list. We're also tracking very dry conditions, completely opposite conditions across Montana tonight. After a very stormy evening, that cold front pushed through, sparking severe thunderstorm warnings across all of central Montana and northeast Montana late last night. There is not a drop to be found across western or central Montana tonight, so cloud-free. Besides a little wildfire smoke, we're cloud-free and moisture-free this evening, and will continue to be so through the weekend, but we're also going to track that very dry air. That's what's keeping us dry, of the moisture, but we're also looking at 20% relative humidity. And this time of night, when we're in the 20s, you know it's very dry. Earlier in the afternoon, we had teens in the forecast for that relative humidity, so very dry air is really settled in here. Still in the 20s right now, and it's 85 degrees outside, feeling more like 80 degrees. At least the dry air is making it feel a little cooler out there after a big warm up after yesterday's cool down. But tracking it out hour by hour, we keep dry, but we do have a weak, very weak cold front that's going to move through tomorrow. So it doesn't spark any storms, barely even making for rain in our forecast. Besides a few clouds on the high line, you probably won't even notice the cold front moving through, at least visually, but there are some changes that move in otherwise in the forecast, which comes in the form of wind. So maybe you don't see the rain that moves in, the clouds, but you definitely feel the wind pick up as the cold front moves through. We're talking 25, 30 mile per hour gusts tomorrow afternoon. So we've got two ingredients here: very gusty conditions and very dry air, all contributing to the higher danger of fire. So fire danger on the rise, red flag warnings in effect for Saturday morning through Saturday evening for parts of the northern Rocky Mountain front, including parts of Heart Butte, Browning, Cut Bank, all the way across Highway 2 to Chester and down to Conrad. So all these areas, if a fire does start, it's going to spread very quickly. So do your best to minimize those fire dangers. Check the chains, or make sure you have the chains up when you're driving down the highway. Make sure you check the campfires if you are going camping this weekend, because it's very important to do that so we can prevent as many wildfires as possible. So besides the dry air and warmer conditions, we're going to see that dry air, warm air, and the wind on Saturday as we hit 90 in Great Falls. We're going to have a few isolated chances of showers on Monday night into Tuesday. The capital city stays dry all weekend long as well. We have a few clouds roll in on Monday as we hit 92. We'll be in the 80s next week as a few spotty showers start to move in.
Thanks, Elizabeth. A Great Falls native brings her artistic skills home. We'll take you inside her new gallery next.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Well, as Helena Capital and Helena High teams continue preparation for the upcoming athletic seasons, both the Bruins and Bengals learned this week they will start the year with empty bleachers. Helena Activities Director Tim McMahon told MTN Sports Today that fans will not be allowed at athletic events in Lewis and Clark County, at least for the beginning of the season. McMahon says the guidelines are clear. It's either no fans, but go ahead and play, or no play at all.
I think the biggest question of all is why. I can't do both fans in the stands and the game on the court or on the field. The directives don't allow me to do that. That's the why piece. How do I change it? This is a county health order. This is a direction or guidance from county health. If the guidance changes, I'm happy to submit a plan, an amendment to my current plan that asks for or includes how would we do spectators in Helena. Of course, I'd be happy to.
Now, Great Falls Public Schools told MTN that they're working with City County Health Department to finalize their plan and would be submitting a proposal soon. We'll bring you that decision as soon as it's made. Just in time for this weekend's Art Fest, a Great Falls artist is unveiling her all-new art gallery in the Times Square building. After moving back to her hometown around the start of the pandemic, Great Falls artist Lisa Nelson purchased an art space of her own. Although the young artist intended to convert it into a studio, she decided to create something new for herself and the community, a contemporary art gallery where artists like herself could showcase their work.
I could make a gallery. I could make some kind of venue for art, not necessarily a gallery in the traditional sense, because I don't want it to feel like it's just another kind of like place to buy commodities necessarily. I want it to be really a space where people can come in and have an experience of art, and where people can learn something about art and maybe about themselves.
Anyone with inquiries about visiting or using the gallery can head to our website for more information. Well, did you enjoy one of the last weekends of the summer with your family? You might be on the lookout for some outdoor activities. The hunt is over because for the next 2 weeks, you can take part in a citywide scavenger hunt for the chance to win some prizes. In order to help familiarize residents with some of Great Falls' attractions, the Business Improvement District put together a hunt throughout the Electric City. Community Director Joan Radine says this way of wayfinding will give locals the opportunity to introduce visitors to all Great Falls has to offer.
Wayfinding is an ability for our guests who come to town to know their way around. You and I know how to get from point A to point B in Great Falls, but strangers who come to town don't know point A to point B, and so we're trying to help guide them. But we want our community to know and be familiar with all of the amazing and wonderful assets that we have here, and so that's what this scavenger hunt is for.
And we'll be right back with a final check of weather.
We're going to be tracking the 90s this weekend, but a weak cold front is going to move through Saturday, bringing very dry air and breezy conditions, so fire danger is going to be elevated on Saturday afternoon. That dry air sticks around through the weekend, and then we have our first chance of showers back in the forecast on Monday evening into Tuesday morning. So 90s in the capital city, plenty of sunshine to soak up. Again, a little choppy out there on the lake as well. So we're tracking 25-30 mile-per-hour gusts. Rain returns to Helena on Monday afternoon.
Finally, the iconic Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal flavor now comes in a handy bottle for topping just about anything with a little sweetness. Cinnadust blends together cinnamon, vanilla, sugar, and graham cracker goodness into an easy-to-enjoy powder. It could be used on toast, ice cream, yogurt, fresh fruit, or even as a substitute for sprinkles. Cinnadust will be available at Sam's Club stores starting September 1st. It won't be sold in other grocery stores or online until early next year. All right, well, that's all the time we have for you for tonight. Have a great night and a great weekend.